Hear you.
Okay, I could hear you now. Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Sounds
Yes,
good.
sir.
How you doing,
All
brother?
right. Smelly Jelly, the man.
Yes, sir.
The
Yeah, today we
one and
have
only.
Christopher Matthew Spencer, goes by CMS. How are you
I
doing today,
do.
Chris? Or CMS?
Fantastic.
That's
Now that
awesome.
we're having an interview, I'm fantastic.
Great,
I
great.
love connecting with content creators.
Yeah, I mean, I started this year. This is my first interview, so be a little patient with me. I'm a little nervous. But no, it's
Well,
it's great to
I
have you
mean,
here.
the trick is fake it till you make it, Ethan.
Right on, man.
Right? I
Yeah,
mean, come on, I'm just getting started myself. I'm just heading into the acting gig. It's
yeah.
my first real movie. So, we're both kind of freshmen, to this process.
Yeah, I mean, it was great. When I saw it, usually with the limited releases, I'm usually the only one in the theater, but there was a pretty decent amount of people in there. It was 10, 15 people. I mean, it was, I thought it was a great movie. I really enjoyed it. What were your let's just get right into it, I suppose, but what were your like
Sure.
acting roots? I read somewhere that you were in theater for high school and like your school.
Right.
And just how was that?
Well, I first, can I ask you a quick question? How
Yeah,
much time do we have?
it's I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but so I was aiming for 30, 40, but we could go on for hour and a half. It's just whenever.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean, I carved it out. So, I mean, we
awesome.
can
Yeah.
talk about all kinds of stuff if you want. I mean, the whole idea is that we're here to share the brain drain with
Yeah.
with your viewers and give them a little bit of history. So before I get into the thespian aspect of my life, I just want to say, I have had an unusual life
Mm-hmm.
because I had a really rough childhood. I was born in Columbus, Ohio, but at a young age we moved to Falls Church, Virginia. My father, who I haven't spoken to since '85, is East Indian, and my mother, who passed last year, is a German woman, and she was from Ohio. My mom was a doctor, and you know, my father grew up. We grew up as Muslims, so it was kind of a tough
Mm-hmm.
situation because my mother wasn't really a Muslim, and the kids were raised as Muslims, and it was to say the least, it was confusing. But nothing against Muslims. I grew up as a Muslim.
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up in a Muslim household. Nothing against Muslims, but the Muslim way of growing up, the
Right.
way that they're raised, it is not compatible with American laws. Our father was rough on us to a point which would be not okay with American laws, period.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran away from home at 16, and I never went back. And so I was kind of homeless for a while. My brother put me up for a bit, but he and his girlfriend and I didn't get along, and so I was on my own. And I was living out of a car for a short while, and then I got my own place in South Central LA, of all places.
Right. Right.
Uh, that's like, I didn't know anything about LA, so I didn't know it was considered a tough neighborhood. I just grew up there. I grew up in South Central LA. And, because I had to work and make a buck, I have a ninth grade education. I had to drop out of high school.
Mm-hmm.
And as a result of all that, I've been a self taught person. And what I learned from being a self taught person, mostly learning on my own as much as possible, is that, you have to curate information from different people. And so, I did repertory theater for a while. I did, who Jason Bateman is, of course,
Yeah.
that name.
Yeah.
Kent Bateman, Jason's father, had a theater company, the Bateman Company Theater Group. And in '87, I was in the Bateman Company Theater Group. And David Faustino, who ended up on Married with Children, he was one of my classmates in that school. And I wanted to stick to it, but because I had to make money, I just jumped right into work, and one thing led to another, and I
Yeah.
became a businessman, and I got into the management of actors. I was on the other side of production and did a lot of different things. And so to give you the kind of the short version of that, and I'll give you a quick timeline. I was in the office supplies business first. Then I got the bug for stage production. I did live stage production.
Yeah.
Then I did talent management of actors. And then I worked for a celebrity management company. And then I ran a management agency and a music management company. And then later in the 90s, I joined eBay as a public speaker, totally random.
Right,
Okay.
right.
Do I call you Ethan or Smelly Jelly?
Yeah, Ethan. Yeah.
Okay. So Ethan, I ran off to eBay for 8 years. 8 years I worked at eBay as a public speaker, and that was just amazing. I mean, I had such a great time. And believe it or not, met so many celebrities and big wigs and cool people through eBay, through all the different things I did at eBay. And then right around somewhere in the 2008 period, I took a little bit of my money, my shekels from eBay, and I got into the hotel business. I bought a motel, hotel, bar, restaurant. I had a business partner. It got into all these different things. So I'm very entrepreneurial. But all this time, I wanted to be a big
Yeah.
star, like all kids. I never grew out of that, of course.
The dream, yep.
I wanted to be a big star. So the ham that I am, I've always been involved in like studying acting and public speaking and, done a lot of that kind of stuff. I did acting classes along the way. But in 2019, I realized that with COVID, the industry was changing.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so we had a chance to completely change the whole acting industry because now casting directors no longer required you to show up. You could actually audition via Zoom, and that changed. That was the game changer because, I'm not a diva. I'm not spoiled. I really am not. I mean, I'm a little spoiled, but I'm not like totally spoiled.
Right, right.
As a business person, I've learned to enjoy nice things, but if I saw a business opportunity, I'm going to drive, fly, whatever. That's fine. But acting's a little different. With acting, the actor is in a position where you have to drive a long distance. Sometimes it's not a long distance, but it's like, have you ever been to LA?
I've been to California. I have not been to LA. Yeah.
Okay, but you can imagine from
Oh,
YouTube videos that,
yeah. From
I'm in Burbank. Santa Monica is just a hop, skip, and a jump
yeah.
away, and it's like an hour and a half to get there, an hour with traffic.
Yeah, I mean,
Uh, you
you
know,
see it on the television and all that stuff. It's just seems very condensed, a condensed city for sure.
yeah, I mean, you struggle
Traffic and
with
all.
traffic,
Yeah,
so you just deal with a fire truck or a car accident or whatever. So as an actor, you've got to, if you were to drive to all those places, it's challenging, right? So I got like, oh, Zoom, this is good.
game changer,
I'm going to
right?
do this acting thing now because Zoom makes it easy.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I got the bug like hard. And the reason I got the bug hard is because I now saw that my time could be better spent on digital auditioning. And with digital auditions, it really changed the game. I probably did over 800 auditions last year. I've got audition today. I've got to do on Zoom, and I've also got submitted 3 auditions yesterday. So Zoom, Zoom, not Zoom. When I say Zoom, I don't, that's a generic phrase for self tapes, Zoom, Hangouts, whatever, all those
Yeah,
things.
yeah.
So with digital auditions, it's changed the whole world for us, Ethan, and everything about the industry has. I feel like it's improved a little bit because we now have a chance to get jobs that we may not have had before. It brings talent from all over.
Oh,
It
yeah.
also generates more competition, which means you have to be competitive
Right.
because a lot more people have the convenience of the camera, and they can just submit an audition. Now, to answer your question about kind of like how this journey worked out, in 2019, I joined a great group of people called the Brian Cutler Actor Studio. Of course, Brian Cutler is the head honcho
Hmm.
at the place, but Brian Cutler Actor Studio is really a an enclave of actors. It's run by actors, it's managed by actors. It's a great class. It's a great studio. I don't call Brian Cutler my coach. He's not really my coach. He's my acting teacher, and I learned how to act. I mean, I had acting skills, but I was leading the school play. I did all that stuff as a kid. But with Brian Cutler, he teaches you how to cold read. He makes sure that you understand professionalism, audition technique, how to talk to people. But what's really great about going to acting class, now this is a message for not only throwing roses at the studio, but also a message for all you folks interested in becoming a professional actor. I'm going to try this out. I'm like, no, 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 no. There's no like, this isn't a try this out kind of
Yeah,
business.
right.
You have to become a professional. You have to understand how to do it. And that means that you have to study your technique. You have to be ready to, pick up a script and read. You have to be able to go to audition, show up on time. Brian has an interesting saying. I say interesting because it seems so obvious. If you're early, you're on time. If you're on time, you're late. And if you're late, good luck getting another job with those people.
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
he says, for this is something everybody should really follow. But I hope that kind of explained how I jumped into it. Maybe we should talk a little bit about Malum, how I got the job. I
Yeah.
don't know what
I
do you want to talk about?
I I mean, just with it's interesting you mentioned you're kind of jumping from careers and stuff like that. Because I was actually a PA for a movie. We did it last year. It's supposed to come out. It was supposed to come out that Halloween, but it got delayed. So it's probably going to come out this summer. But talking to the people on set there, I mean, I was asking because it was something that I wanted to do. It's something that I'd still like to do, but I'm young, so I'm gonna just see what happens in my life. But talking to people there, they would always mention it's like you kind of do a little bit of everything in the industry before you find your kind of what you're going to be doing in film. I just thought it was very fascinating that you went from running agencies and stuff like that before you kind of zoned in on acting. I mean, did you want to do anything else other than acting? Do you want to do directing, maybe even? I mean, is that just way in the
Well,
distance?
it's
Um,
not way in the distance. I directed public service announcements, radio spots, and commercials,
yeah.
but these were very small, like itsy bitsy stuff. I did itsy bitsy stuff for myself. Like when I owned a hotel,
Hmm.
I had this, and Ethan, this sounds a lot cooler than it really was. I mean, people say, well, that's cool. You must be rich. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty well off. But the reality is there's a price to be paid for, being me. And I am just a worker. I don't have any thoughts about really, I'll be frank with you. Steven Spielberg had this great quote,
Hmm.
and I didn't actually see his mouth open and say these words. So when you read quotes, you always have
Grain of
to
salt. Yeah.
slightly skeptical, right?
Right.
Because
Yeah.
somebody put that quote out there, and we don't know if it's
Today's day
really
and age,
them or not. But
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. In this day and age, we always have to be skeptical because quotes get misquoted. Like there's a quote that I've heard circulating about Steven Spielberg where it was he made the comment about allegedly made the comment
Sure.
about uh, he doesn't really try to plan stuff too much. And if you look at Elon Musk, he talks about Tesla and he says, well, we don't really have like, try not to have too many agendas or meetings or board meetings. And he says, we try not to think too much about it. So, all these things have happened to me. I've tried to have an open mind and let the wind blow.
Yeah.
So when the opportunity steps up, I don't consider myself a this or a that. It's not that I had that many careers. Most young people, I can't speak for everybody, but
Hmm.
most young people I know, they stick to a job for a few years, they move on. I've never been at a job where I just was 2 years in a job. I always had jobs for years.
Yeah.
Like eBay, I worked at eBay for 8 years. So I stuck with it for a long time. And when I did worked for LinkedIn Learning, I did some on camera educational courses for LinkedIn Learning, which was a very good time. I really enjoyed working with them. Um, but there's so many instructors, so it's like it's a very competitive kind of world over there. With LinkedIn Learning, I was there from 2010. I think I made my last course in 2008. 8 years.
Right.
It's a long time
Yeah.
to be doing stuff with people. Um, so, when I look at the totality of all the careers, each one had a pretty good long life. And you probably know this, but Hudson is like late 30s.
Yeah.
I am in my 50s.
Could have,
So,
yeah, could have
you
fooled
know,
me. Could have fooled me.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
it's not a filter. I turned the filters off on
Right.
Zoom. It's not a filter.
Yeah, a little.
No, just probably the best advice I have for people about keeping good skin is stay out of the sun, because you can see a huge difference when you look at people who are in the sun all the time. But about all the careers, I looked at all these other things as just things that came along the path,
Hmm.
and careers that stepped in front of me, and I took them and I went with them. But as far as now looking towards the future, I do want to focus on really maxing out professional acting. Like,
Yeah.
I really want to spend as much time as I can acting. I want to be a full-time actor. That's my passion. I would like to learn. I do take very small parts
Hmm.
because I want to be on big sets. So I'm willing to take really small, jobs on really big shows. I mean, I did a small job on Winning Time, and then I worked on some other shows as well where I had a very small role, a very small, very tiny part. But what you learn by being on these big shows
Yeah.
and these big movies is you learn all the things that are going on behind the scenes, and you can, if you pay attention, you can become. It's like the master class for film school. It's like no offense to any film school. If I offend you, it's just, that's me
It
speaking
is what
out
it is,
loud.
right?
Anybody that's in film schools are out there, and there's so many of them, and I'm sure they're wonderful. But I've spoken to people who came out of film school, and even top film schools have said that when you get to the set, things are like 10 years ahead
Yeah.
of what they were doing in film school. And it's not that they didn't appreciate film school. It's that they realized that you got to have a lot of resources to put all those things together. And film companies have those resources because they're renting equipment. By the way, most people rent all that equipment.
Yeah.
It's not like Panavision doesn't sell
I
cameras.
believe we
They
did
rent
for
them.
the movie that I was a part of, and it's I mean it's
Right.
even my role as PA. It's one of the smallest roles on a set. It was just fascinating to see how everything unfolds and to see a film being made. I mean that was my first time ever. I thought it was awesome. Like every day, just talking to
Right.
everybody, asking questions, just learning. I mean it was fantastic. How does because you said you were self-taught for most of your like kind of what you know. How does that differ like what you learned compared to maybe people that went to these like traditional film schools and stuff like that?
Well, when some people like structure, I definitely understand that, and they
Yeah.
like to go into a curriculum, and they like to have that opportunity. I lean heavily on mentors, and by studying people, I feel like there's a term for that, which is autodidact.
Hmm.
Somebody who's self-taught. But I think we're all autodidacts in a way. Uh, if we're going to digress a little bit, which I like to do, I like tangents because I
Great.
enjoy a conversation.
Yeah.
I enjoy a conversation, right? So I worked in Silicon Valley, and I saw, high tech, and that was something that opened my eyes. And I realized that, you can't unsee things. Like, once you see things, you can't unknow them. It's kind of like you're a kid, you go to McDonald's, you get a hamburger, and it's the best thing you ever had with that gooey American cheese. And then suddenly you go to Umami Burger, and you get like a third pound, Wagyu with, some really wonderful real
All the
cheddar, like
works. Yeah.
all the works. And it's primo and barrel made pickles and the whole bit. And you just can't undo that experience. You can't unthink that moment
Sure.
of bliss that you get from a fine dining experience. Well, the same thing applies to life and learning. Uh, I was an A student until I dropped out of school. I mean, I was always a good student. It's really tragic that kids have trouble at home and then they have to make hard decisions. And I don't regret leaving, and I don't regret not going back. I think it was very good for me.
Hmm.
As far as being forced to have a different view on learning, I realized that mentorships were probably kind of like apprenticeships, right?
Yeah.
Mentorships were the way that I'd learned business, the way that I learned public speaking, and got involved in the world of hotels, and I got involved in the world of motel, and the bar business and the restaurant business. And you latch into people. People think that. Well, let me just say this a different way. Rather than go to the negative, let me go to the positive.
Sure.
It's important to give people a chance to help you, because most people will.
Yeah.
Most people are good. They're going to help you. Of course, there are cutthroat business people, but actually, true business people understand that there's, kind of a karma system out there. If you do good things for people, you're going to get it back, usually substantially. And I worked with Kathy Ireland, Janet Jackson, Elizabeth Taylor's team. I worked with those fine folks, and I had a great experience working with them as well. And I did consumer product licensing at that company, and I put a lot of products in stores, handbags, phone accessories, different products that I was involved in licensing. And as you meet and talk to people, one of the great quotes that I got, from Warren Buffett when I was working with Kathy Ireland, who's friends with Warren Buffett
Yeah.
and Bill Gates. She said that Warren, Mr. Buffett, she says, Mr. Buffett is who she calls him, said that, by the way, I am a shareholder. I don't know if I'm legally required to say that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a Berkshire Hathaway
Get
shareholder. I have
get
to
it out of the
probably have to
way.
say that.
Right.
Yeah, I got to get that legal stuff out of the way in case I say something that's going to promote the stock price.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Warren Buffett would say, do 10 things for someone before you ask for something from them. And I think the concept is that if somebody's a lady or a gentleman, they're going to be good people and help. So, unless it's going to injure me in some serious way, I usually like to help people. In fact, I probably help people as much as possible day in and day out. I'm always looking for ways to pass the elevator down. But that goes back to learning. And your question about education is, how do I approach this, and what's my thoughts about education? Well, um, I would say, as much as I can, I look at YouTube. I know that
Oh yeah.
I've gotten more into the Instagram stuff.
It's
I mean,
people
I
underestimate it for sure with YouTube and all
well,
that.
I don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely don't. I mean, I think there's a lot of nonsense. If the minute I sense that a content creator is padding their material, I just skip it. But
Yeah.
there are YouTube videos, they just jump right into it.
Yeah.
And I believe that if you're not just trying to get your run time, or whatever they call it, your view hours, but you actually put stuff together, tight, succinct content. If it's tight, succinct content, I like today. I was looking at how I work with a nonprofit organization, and we were working out some used laptops, and I wanted to unlock them because they'd been locked and they were donated. And so, YouTube tells you how to do all that. That's how you learn stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Right.
It's not something you can pick up in a book somewhere. Now, I noticed that you have a game controller. Are you an avid video game connoisseur?
Yeah. I before I did the film that I worked on last year, I was at a video store for about 3 years. I mean, they're still around if you just drive around a bit. Um, that's kind of I went in primarily interested in video games, but being surrounded by all those movies, I know what I liked going in, um, but it's just I started to watch more and more, and it was like over time I noticed like it's something that I found myself really passionate about and just fascinated with. watching behind the scenes and stuff like that. So like working at a video store, it really kind of helped me do the deep dive into a different hobby, film, and like ever since then it's like yeah, I watch a lot. I play a lot of games, but I also watch quite a bit of movies. I'd say a bit more. I have Evil Dead the game. I just saw the new Evil Dead last night, and I have the Resident Evil 4 right here, the PlayStation. Yeah,
I never imagined myself in a horror film.
yeah. It's
It wasn't my first genre. My go-to genres are sci-fi and action adventure and, sort of like action films, sci-fi films.
yeah. Mine. I mean,
Those are kind of my go-tos.
I've had horror films that I liked growing up as a kid, but it was mainly I was into beyond when I started to grow up a bit more. I was really into
Right,
kung fu movies. I was really into action and kung fu movies. But going back to that video store, I had a manager that was huge into horror, and then just talking to him about
right.
movies, it's you kind of just go down the rabbit hole, and you're watching like I don't know Italian directors and people I would have never heard of. You start watching like the indie stuff and the
Yeah,
foreign stuff. It's
right.
just a big rabbit hole. How did you get into contact with Anthony about Malum? I mean, it's I know you mentioned the Zoom
Well,
call.
that's
Uh,
yeah. So actors have to submit themselves for auditions,
yeah.
right? And the way that our industry works now, I can't speak for the past. I'm just saying now.
Hmm.
The way that our industry works right now is that you have these casting sites where you go in and you load up all these different casting notices.
Yeah.
And there's a little bit of like filters involved where you put down your age range, your ethnic type, or
Yeah.
whatever. And I'm a character actor, so I really do try to submit for age ranges well below and beyond what I am, because I mean a lot of times that pays off. I do get auditions for things that are not in my age range,
Yeah.
which brings me to Malum. Malum was like written as a 25-year-old cop.
Right. Right.
He was in the breakdown. It was, I don't remember the exact age, but I think it was like 20s, 20 something police officer. And so, I took a chance. And so with the casting notices, you get these notices on the computer and it says, we're looking for these types of, characters. Of course, by the time it gets to casting notices, usually the star, I say, of course, I mean, you wouldn't know this. Maybe you do know this.
Hmm.
The stars have already been picked. I mean, by the time it comes to me and I can see it online and I can subscribe to these casting notices, usually the main characters, the main celebrities or characters, like I'm sure I have to assume Jessica Sula was a handpicked, already
Right.
pre-picked
Yeah.
and was already selected to be the star of the film before it came to me and before I got the casting notice.
Hmm.
And so the casting notices, there's different networks, and I don't know if you want to post my social media online or whatever.
Oh yeah.
But I
Absolutely.
always I always help actors who ask. If somebody asks me, I'll send them like a document that I put together with all the information about which casting sites and how to use them and
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So once the casting notice came out, then I saw there was an opportunity. I saw the guy was only in his 20s, but I submitted anyway. And the reason for that is very simple. So a tip for actors. If it's not like somebody's mother or, excuse me, somebody's father or somebody's brother or somebody's aunt or uncle or whatever, if it's a side character, or what I refer to in my case is the characters, like character actor type jobs.
Yeah.
If it's a side character and it would be realistic for the person to be older, I usually submit. So in this case, it's a cop, and he didn't have any familial connections to any of the other characters.
Hmm.
So to me, I thought, well, this guy's not anybody's brother, mother, a brother, a father. There's no real
Kind of
reason why they
more
couldn't be
run of the
older.
mill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a side character, right? So
Yeah.
I put myself in, and I got an audition. So the audition came through, and then I got the sides of the script is what that means. It's like aside from the script, you get these sides, which is a couple of scenes, that
Hmm.
you audition for. So I got the sides, the audition sides, and I went ahead and recorded the audition. And I'm kind of kicking myself because I don't think I kept the audition. You see them online sometimes when people got their audition
Yeah.
tapes or whatever. I don't think I kept it. I'm sure Anthony probably has it, but I don't think I have it. Which is sad because we do so many auditions. I probably did 800 auditions last year. It just isn't manageable. You can't manage all that stuff. It's too many
Yeah,
videos.
and it's like the one
Um,
that you'd probably want to keep, with the, being a theatrical release. It's, you know, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm going to try and dig it out
Oh yeah.
from Anthony maybe at some point. So once the videotaped audition is submitted, then the casting director, Joey's the casting director, he was kind enough to bring me in. So really, the casting director is a gatekeeper. They are the person who decides whether or not your performance is what they think the director is looking for,
Hmm.
what the director might be interested in. And the casting director has to take all these hundreds of submissions and kind of, curate out of all of those as he goes
Yeah.
shopping and looks at all these. So out of all these, hundreds of people that submitted videotapes, or however many he allowed to audition, uh, I've seen the other side of casting, and I know that on an average role, you could have not only hundreds, thousands of people could submit.
Right.
So, after he did look at all of them and decided to bring me back, I got a live Zoom audition with Anthony DeBlasi and, of course, Joey. Joey, if you're listening, you're going to have to call me and tell me how to pronounce your last name because I always butcher it. Montenegro, I think is how it's pronounced, but I know how to spell it, but I've never heard him say it, so
Yeah.
he's going to yell at me. It's going to be a thing now. It's going to be a thing for the rest of my career. Joey will be mad at me. He's like, "How come you never figured out how to pronounce my name?" And I'm like, Joey, I've never heard you pronounce your name.
Yeah.
So Joey brought me in. I saw Anthony on a video. We had a Zoom call. He said, "Hey, good job. I like it." And then, he asked me if I had any questions. You know what I said to Anthony? This is an important detail that I think any aspiring actor should remember. Why would anybody want to hire you unless you express a strong interest in the job?
Yeah. The passion. Right.
So I always tell actors, man, no matter what job you're going out for, I don't care what it is. It's not a sign of weakness. It's not a sign of being desperate. It's not a sign of being, a loser to say, "Hey, I really love this job. I really want to do this job." So I always tell people when I want to do a job, if I really like the part, if I really love the material, I will come right out and say, "I really want this job." So I said, "Anthony, I really want this job, man. I hope you will give me serious consideration and that you will consider me. I'd really love to have this part." And next thing you know, bam, it's
Was
like
it
I
was it
got
on
the
the
job.
spot? Did you get the job on the spot, or did you?
No, no, I just got a booking offer. I
Okay.
got an offer
Yeah.
and an email offer.
Hmm.
The offers usually come in an email. It's very rare you're going to get a booking on the spot, honestly, Ethan.
Yeah.
Most people don't hire like that. I don't know anybody that hires like
Hmm.
that.
Do you think it's gonna be like Zoom casting? Like, are we shifting towards that in terms of casting actors and talent, or is it? Do you think we're gonna be going back to traditional? You go in and you perform in front of the casting director and the director, or is it? Do you really think it's headed towards Zoom in the future?
Hold on a second. I'm going to grab my crystal ball. Okay, here it is.
Let's see. Yeah.
So the question is, what do I believe the future holds?
Yeah.
And of course, I have no clue what the future holds.
Yeah.
If I were to bet, if I was a betting
Yeah.
man,
What do you think?
I would say that Zoom will be the new normal for most casting offices because they realize that they no longer have to spend money on rent.
And it's like you
They
could get
don't.
talent from outside of where the casting is taking place and like where pre-production and all that. So it's you get it from out of state. I mean, out of the country, even if needs be, if you find the right person. So I was thinking about that when you were telling me about just the benefits of doing casting, over the internet. I mean, it seems like it has a lot of upgrades to traditional casting with the reach that you could get
Well,
alone.
that certainly raises the bar, right? It
Yeah,
generates
and
opportunities
then
for people,
competition, right?
of course.
Yeah,
Yeah, much more competition. And casting directors have systems for weeding out the less serious people.
yeah.
The way they weed out the less serious people could be anything from asking you to submit a reel. A lot of people don't have reels.
Hmm.
And For those of you who are professional actors listening, okay, and I hope you're listening to Ethan's podcast or YouTube. I'm not sure where this is going to go, but
Yeah,
for those of you who are watching, just remember that the harder it is, the fewer people are going to try. So if it was supposed to be easy, everybody would do it. One of the things that makes the casting interesting is that a lot of casting directors ask you to pre-read as a submission process. And pre-read means get the sides, the script, read something on camera, record it, submit it, just to be considered.
hmm,
And a lot of folks, if they don't have the energy or desire to do that, they'll be immediately disqualified because casting directors are asking you to do this because they're trying to weed out all of the extra not serious people. You can't see because there's the
yeah,
you've got the plate behind me on Zoom, but in my office where I'm at now in my workspace, I have the camera set up, the light. I'm ready to go.
yeah.
So anybody gives me an audition, I just print it, I record
Get
it,
them what
I'm
they
done.
need,
It's on
right?
the yeah. I
Yeah,
mean, you don't need to sit there and get ready and get set up. You should always have a professional actor should be prepared to record an audition on the set, at
right.
lunch break, at a hotel room, in a back alley if you're desperate, because you're working. I mean, I've done auditions where I was at Winning Time. I was on Winning Time, the TV show. I was working at Winning Time and I got an audition. I had to go duck out at lunch and go into the break
Whatever
area.
you could
I
do,
went
yeah.
into a quieter corner. I was working on another TV show, and one of my coworkers, one of my colleagues on the show, one of my fellow actors, said to me, hey, would you mind reading with me? And of course, reading means you read the other lines, you read the other parts. Ideally, if it's a woman's part, you want to have a woman reader, but sometimes you don't have a choice, so
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
use whoever you have.
Just
Ideally,
whatever's
but
available, right?
yeah, I have a wonderful helper. I don't like to call her an assistant because she's not an assistant. I have a wonderful helper who works for me 30 hours a week, and she does reading. She submits on casting notices. I have many wonderful agents that help me. So let's give them, shout outs because I want to give them thanks for all their help. Of course, I give thanks to Brian Cutler for being my acting teacher
Yeah,
and the Brian Cutler Actor Studio. I give them a lot of credit for my success.
absolutely.
And then I have my wonderful commercial agent here in Los Angeles is One World Model and Talent Agency. It's Sandra Brosnan. And then I work with Michael Zanuck. He's here in Los Angeles for film and television. Um, I have a theatrical doesn't mean theater. So for folks that don't know, theatrical agent means film and TV. That's your theatrical agent
Yeah.
as opposed to commercial agent. It's confusing.
Right,
It can
right.
be confusing
Yeah.
because you also can have an agent for stage, a totally different kind of an agent.
Yeah.
So a theatrical agent is film and
It's
television.
probably where a
So I
lot
have
of
a
people's
wonderful theatrical agent. Say
oh, I was
again,
gonna
Ethan.
say that's probably where a lot of people's minds go when they hear theatrical. They think stage, but it's yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
But that's why we have these master classes with Ethan, where we teach all Ethan's listeners, viewers, about the nuances of the
Yeah.
industry, and they become more knowledgeable. So we have a wonderful theatrical agent out of Atlanta, Georgia, Actors LA Agency, and that's Sharon Morris. All these folks have been with me for a long time, and then I have my longest running agent, who's been with me the longest, absolute longest,
Yeah.
is Matt Wagner with Fresh Books. And in 2005, he got me a publishing deal with Simon and Schuster, the Kaplan division, and wrote my first book. And I've published 5 books since then. And I've published many, many courses with LinkedIn Learning and lynda.com because Matt had made the arrangements, or Fresh Books.
That's awesome.
Matt
Yeah.
Wagner had made the arrangements for that.
Right on.
I'll give Matt credit. I mean, in terms of career earnings, I've earned more money with Matt Wagner than any other agency, and so Matt gets high props for that. He's a very talented agent.
Yeah, shout out, Matt.
So big shout out for him. But getting back to Malum, if I could just change gears again and go back to the audition process. This is something that I like to reminisce about that audition, because if an audition is easy, if it's comfortable, I should say comfortable, not easy, comfortable. If an audition is comfortable, that's usually a window for me, like a window. Okay, what is this director going to be like?
Yeah.
I actually only ever quit one job. Now, I regretted quitting it, but I only ever quitted one job. I had a voiceover job, and the director and I did not see eye to eye.
Mm-hmm.
She was when you audition, you give them what you plan to do for the job. They hire you based on an audition. I delivered what was in the audition at the job. And for some reason, I couldn't even get through an entire read. She would interrupt and ask me to try again. And I just said, look, we've been at this for about an hour, and it doesn't seem like you're really happy with my performance. And I respectfully would like to decline this job, because she was giving line readings, like telling me how to read the lines.
Oh,
yeah. And it's okay. I mean, I'm not offended by line readings. I mean, it's fine. I mean, it's okay. But I had great experiences with Anthony, and I got to the set 2 days early because I'm paranoid.
Yeah,
I'm like, I don't want to be late. I don't want a plane to get delayed in the weather or whatever. Whatever. So I was there 2 days early, and I wanted to be there early. And Anthony, here was the first good sign that this guy was really amazing. He emails me and says, if you got any questions or concerns, I'm here to help. Let me know if I can help you with anything. I immediately wrote back. I have the email somewhere. I could read it to you, but I'll just say what it said.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering if I could get some more lines. And he wrote back. He didn't say, "Hey, that's very forward of you, Spencer." He didn't say that. He said, "Well, we're on set. We sometimes can do some of that stuff. Throw some things out there."
Yeah.
So I didn't harass him about it. Okay, I try not to be too eager.
Yeah.
But I wanted Officer Hudson to be a bigger part. It's my first feature film gig out there in a co-starring. It's like a pretty good sized role.
Yeah,
and so
absolutely.
I wanted Hudson to be a bigger part. And so I was being a little bit, I was trying to assume the sale, I guess, as salespeople do.
Yeah.
So I got on the set. Anthony is really chill. He's like, okay, show me what you got. It's not like, okay, well, this is not what he did. Well, I see this Hudson guy is being like this, and I imagine the backstories and all these things. And first of all, Brian Keller will tell you he doesn't believe in backstory or method acting.
Yeah.
He just came from Germany. Well, why did he come from Germany? Who cares why he came from Germany? He just came from Germany.
Right, yeah.
What does it matter what he was doing in Germany?
Just roll with it.
It's just part of the story.
Yeah.
What does it matter? So Anthony didn't go, okay, I've got this plan for you, Hudson. And he actually called me Hudson on the set.
Oh, nice.
Even though, of course, he knows my name.
Yeah.
He called me Hudson. So he said, show me what you got. I did the take. I have a wonderful co-star, Sam Brooks. He played Price. And Sam Brooks is the very dashing young man who is my partner. And he's half my age in real life.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting combination. And uh, Price comes in, starts talking to Lauren, Jessica,
Hmm.
and has this first dialogue with her, and she's already like freaking out because the moment that
Yo, yeah.
happens.
It
Yeah, and you
it's
probably realize that.
it's
Go
something,
ahead.
I think especially with the horror community, but it's some of the smaller roles are like iconic for horror fans. So I mean, when I went into this, that was one of my favorite moments from the last shift. Was the moment where the backup arrives and the twist happens. Clearly for everybody listening, spoiler alerts. But when you find out that the backup isn't alive, I was really anticipating that moment in Malum. I was like, I wonder how they do this differently. So I mean, it was something. It was a role and like a scene that I looked forward to when I went in to go see it. I was because that was again that absolutely you watch so many horror movies, you start to get kind of numb to a lot of the experiences and the shock. But that one got me. I remember watching the last shift. So I was I thought it was done pretty excellently in Malum for sure. As small as the role
Different,
might be.
right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Different. Yeah,
Yeah.
very different. It's not the same movie.
Very in your face, in Malum, which I
Yeah,
think that's the whole
it's a very
movie.
different movie,
Yeah.
right? It's not the same movie. It's not really a redo.
And that's what I
It's kind of its
appreciate.
own,
It's
it's its own film. I mean,
yeah.
it would be very sad if, Anthony had decided to just shot by shot, rework the.
Just with the bigger budget.
It would be very, very sad if he shot by shot, excuse me, decided to rework it as like the same film, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's I'm think the first thing that comes to mind is the Psycho movie from the late '90s. I mean, it is just shot for shot with Vince Vaughn, and don't no disrespect, but some of those shots I just couldn't take it seriously. But it was, I mean, that was
Well,
something.
that's understandable.
It was,
I'm sure he got, it was probably a pinch me moment for him. I met him at the
oh yeah,
Academy. I was at the Hacksaw Ridge screening with
hmm,
Mel Gibson and Vince Vaughn and some of the other actors that were
yeah,
in the film were there. Garfield, Andrew Garfield, and all those folks were there at
hmm,
um, the Academy in Beverly Hills. They had a special screening for Academy members, and I was
hmm.
invited. And again, totally random moment. I was introduced to Caitlyn Jenner at the after party. Hi, this is Caitlyn Jenner. I'm like, hi, how are you? And it wasn't a handshake. It was Caitlyn held my hand with the left hand, with the other hand,
Yeah.
and was like, we were talking, and Caitlyn held my hand during the conversation. It reminded me of meeting Shelley Winters at the Academy, where I was in the elevator and I was having a conversation with a casting director, and this is before Shelley Winters has passed away now,
Yeah.
but she held my hand in the elevator and had a flashback. It's like, it seems like people hold your hand at the Academy. It's a thing.
Right. Very formal.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, I'm not really starstruck, but it was an interesting
Yeah.
moment. I've worked with some wonderful stars and had some great moments with them. So when you said it wasn't the shot by shot, yeah, I think that you're hoping when you make a movie like that, you're hoping that the kids, that go see it aren't old enough to have seen the other movie or
Yeah.
would have been not interested in seeing a black and white movie or whatever. I guess that might be it. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard to figure out
That's
what they're
fair.
thinking.
I mean, it was crazy that it was a remake for with Malum and Last Shift. Just how like close that time gap was. Um,
Very close.
yeah. So it was pretty high expectations going in, but it was I thought it was very well done. I thought Malum was just way more like shocking and just gritty compared to like Last Shift. It's me watching it. It's a remake. I've seen the original. Um, I wasn't as scared, but it was a lot of the scenes. Like I was like, oh my god! I mean, just the production
Right.
and everything. It just all fell into place, and it was just like
Right.
very shocking movie for sure. Um,
I feel like Anthony had the money
yeah.
that he wanted. I feel like the Welcome Villain team,
Hmm.
you know, put the money into the production that Anthony had wanted for the original, perhaps.
Yeah.
I'm not putting words in your mouth, Anthony. I'm just guessing here.
Yeah.
If you happen to be listening, if you and Natalie are listening, I'm not putting words in your
Yeah.
mouth. But I don't think Anthony would ever do, just having spent many hours with him,
Hmm.
and I don't think he would ever do a remake shot by shot. I think that you know, first of all, that's a scary idea, right?
Yeah.
That would just that would end up being a bloody boring movie, really. Um, Malum really does forget the last shift DNA in a lot of ways.
Oh yeah.
It's a really a rebirth and a fresh new film, and I think it penetrates a demographic of a hardcore horror fan. He had bigger budget. He had a very skillful team of producers working with him, and I think you're going to see a lot of films today where the special effects are done in a computer. And I think Anthony decided to put a tremendous amount of money into practical effects with Malum.
Oh yeah.
And I know that because I was there. I saw it.
How
So,
many days were you on set? I mean, for a
well, the number of my day out of days was not a huge number because I had 7 pages in the original film
yeah.
script, but I was in Louisville, Kentucky, Louisville. I'm trying to pronounce it correctly, Louisville, for a little over 2 weeks, and that's because my last scene was at the end of the production schedule,
Hmm.
and I asked for it because you probably remember what I said earlier about me asking about more lines,
Yeah.
and I have a very brief scene. You may not remember this, but while the moment in the jail cell with the door closed, you can see me with my sidearm holding it up in the darkness.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you might remember
It's
that. But when
yeah.
the door slams shut, Jessica runs out of the jail cell and she's just leaving that cell. She got stuck in there and the flashlight rolls, and then she escapes, and then the door slams shut, and then you see the flashing lights, and then you'll see me kind of lurking in the background. Well, that was an add-on, and Anthony just threw that in there. I was just a fly on the wall for that scene. I was just standing there just checking it out, and Anthony said, "Hey, I like having you on set." Like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
that's nice.
Pleasant
And he
surprise.
says, well, come on, hang out. And he's like, so you can sit down in this chair over here. So I got a chair and I watched the scene. And then he said, Hudson, why don't you he always called me Hudson on the set. Hudson, why don't you go in there and stand behind and hold your gun up. I call it a firearm. I feel like words do matter, and
Sure.
with all the weirdness about firearms,
Yeah.
it's good
Yeah.
to use the term firearm. I like the word better.
Yeah.
Um, but that was an add-on. And then later on, towards the end, I stayed on through the end of the production. And at the very end, somewhere in the middle, we went to Churchill Downs and watched the races. And
Oh,
I've got a great
nice.
picture of that. I've got a
Awesome.
great picture of that. Robbie Attal took a picture of me with Jessica at the racetrack, and he was the one behind the camera. And so then at the end, was just asked to come, and I didn't actually know the exact words I was going to be speaking at that point
Hmm.
because that was not scripted. And Anthony said, "Okay, you and Price Hudson, you and Price are going to stand. Price and Hudson are going to stand in front of the flock, and you guys are going to terrorize Jessica." That's not in the script. That
Really?
we're there. That's no, that was an add-on.
Oh. I mean,
So
I definitely want to look out for the scene you mentioned where you're kind of downstairs, like in the background, and it's dark. I've been waiting for it to come on video on demand because I really want to rewatch
right,
it.
yeah, you'll see it.
There's few horror. I try to watch all the horror movies that come out year by year the last couple of years. There's few that I rewatch shortly after, but this one I'm like, yeah, I really want to dive deeper into just kind of
Right.
the the nuances. I mean, it being a
Right.
remake and such a different one. So
Right.
I'm gonna keep my eyes peeled for that for sure.
Yeah, that sort of lurking in the back,
Yeah,
having
yeah.
having that was an additional scene. That moment was added in. And then for those of you who haven't actually seen the movie yet, I'll just kind of give you the quick overview. A rookie cop goes to a decommissioned police station and she spends the evening there, and it's the last shift
Oh.
before the station is finally shuttered and closed down forever. And she encounters all kinds of people, and whether they're living or not, we don't really know. That's the
Stick
interesting
around to
part.
find
You got to
out.
find out. Are they dead? Are they spirits? Are they from another dimension? We really don't know. And so, what unfolds during the night is interesting. And, Officer Hudson and Price are partners in the movie. And I feel like we're the Laurel and Hardy. You might have noticed I was a little bigger. See, if you
Yeah,
look at the
yeah,
picture, see
yeah.
this guy right here? See how much bigger he was? So I gained 40 pounds for that movie.
Uh-huh. It.
So the script read as he's a real, super fat guy, right? And
Mm,
so I'm already a big guy, but I knew Anthony wanted this contrast
the
of
kind.
physical
Right.
type.
You're right.
And I can't say that I'm excited about gaining weight. Anthony never asked me to gain weight,
Yeah.
never.
Oh. Okay. Nice.
But I went and I said, you know what? This is a guy's movie. This is what he's looking for. That's his vision. He wants a real fat cop.
Yeah.
So by the time Wardrobe contacted me, I had packed on some pounds, and I put on 40 pounds for this film, and which is not too hard for me. I mean, I like eating, and I'm definitely an eater, so it's not too hard to do that. And thanks to all the folks in Louisville and Kentucky for the film credit. I know the film credit was why we got the location and we were able to film there because they provide a film credit from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
That's paid for by taxpayers. Don't forget that, people. It's
People.
not free
Yeah. Oh
money.
yeah. Yeah. It
There's no
was.
such thing as free money. It's somebody's paying. So the taxpayers pay for that. I told Anthony, I'd like to stay in touch. He said you should stay in touch. So after the film wrapped, I reached out to him
Hmm.
and I'm not kidding, we had a like almost 5 hour dinner together, and he invited me and Chip and Marceline, Micheline. I'm sorry, I said it again. Micheline, you're gonna yell at me next time I see you. It's like I said, I called her Marceline. I was gonna say I called her Marceline the last time I saw her, and Chip said it's Micheline, and I'm like, yes, I know, but I always loved Adventure Time. So I was a big
Yeah.
Adventure Time
Right on.
fan.
Right on.
I used to watch that show endlessly, and those 12-minute episodes were perfect
I
for me
mean,
because
oh,
I'm
it's
so
such a
busy.
yeah, it's such a great runtime,
So,
just in and out. Yeah.
so great runtime. Love that runtime.
Yeah.
And which brings us to why the short form content is so popular because people are busy
Hmm.
and they don't always want to commit to something longer. But at the end, we were with the flock, and then we terrorized Jessica, and then boom, there's the end of the film. And Anthony totally had us. That was ad libbed all the way,
That's awesome. I love.
completely
Yeah.
thrown in at the end.
Yeah. It. I wanted to ask you, because I know that Jessica, when she went into like the filming, she didn't watch Last Shift. Did you get a chance to watch it before Malum, or I mean, have you watched it?
For sure. I watched it twice before I started, but I'm a
Okay.
businessman.
Yeah, you want
I'm
to
a businessman. I like to
know what
brief
you're working
myself.
with, right? Right.
I'm a person who wants to brief myself. First of all, I knew that if I liked Anthony's directing and editing, that I would be more connected to that man on the set
Hmm.
because I tend to work harder when I respect people. I don't need the money. I mean, of course, I love trophies. I love trophies. Everybody loves trophies.
Sure. Yeah.
You get your money, and it's a big check, and it's beautiful. It's great.
Yeah.
But I'm not doing it for the money. I love acting.
For
I
the
love
craft,
auditioning.
right?
I mean, my job is auditioning. To me, being on the set is like a holiday for me. I enjoy it so much. So I really felt like I had to brief myself. So I read the script cover to cover twice, I watched the movie twice,
Yeah.
and I really, Anthony edited both films.
Hmm.
Did you know that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he edited both movies.
It's.
And
I watched Last Shift. Pretty. I didn't watch it. I mean, way back. I was. Oh God, I was 16 when it came out. But I watched Last Shift sometime last year, and it's usually with horror movies when it's one that because I really liked The Last Shift. I always just like to dive in, and any behind the scenes that I could get a chance to watch, I'll watch it. Interviews, stuff like that. So it was, yeah. I mean, it was. I was impressed with how much, how spread thin he was in terms of like what he was working on for that movie. It's. I mean, he was doing a little bit of everything. It seems. But yeah, yeah. Continue. I digress.
no, no,
Yeah.
it's relevant
Yeah.
because that's I know that I know there had been some discussion about an
Hmm.
editor joining the team, but I think Anthony, because he's such a craftsman, such an artist,
Absolutely.
he really wanted his film to look the way he had it in his head. It's a lot of work to edit a movie. It's
Hmm.
probably an equal amount of work to edit as it is to make the film, to direct the film. So it's another whole job.
Yeah.
I can only imagine it must have had him up late at night because I mean, I can tell you that I edit hundreds of videos for auditions, and you get good at it, but still, there's always somebody better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anthony does a really wonderful job with the editing, and Anthony's an actor's director. I was
Hmm.
telling you about my wonderful dinner. I mean, he invited me to dinner. We had our 4.5 hour mega powwow dinner in
Right.
LA. We
Right.
had
Just hanging out.
udon noodles.
Ah,
We ate our
yes.
udon and we had a great time. It was an excellent experience. And uh, I met Chip and I had a chance to chat with him about his directing career. He's another director. Michelin's a director.
Hmm.
So he introduced me to two of his close friends, and we had it was a really a cherished moment because actors don't always get these opportunities. All they ever talk about is directing.
Yeah.
It's not like you sit down and talk about the weather. There's not
It's
That's directors talk about directing.
constantly thinking about the craft. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's a serious business for them. They don't, I'm with fellow actors. We don't just talk about acting.
It was. I just remember being on set for when they called lunch and dinner. I would talk to the assistant director. I mean, he was constantly telling the other PAs and just anybody who sat with us at our table just about his experiences with acting or directing, excuse me, and just
Right,
working on film. I mean, it's when you're on the set, it's like that's what everybody's mind is on. Some people might talk about other things because it's especially if it's a long day, but it's everybody's just talking about where else they what other projects they've worked on, stuff like that. It's everybody is focused in that world, in that realm.
right.
Hmm. Are you
Well, what other stuff would you like to know about? What else should we
it
talk about?
again, I don't know if obviously I don't know if Anthony has anything planned for the future. Are you gonna keep in contact with him? Are you gonna potentially work with him in the future?
Well, absolutely. I had told him 100% yes, of course.
Hmm.
I mean, I told him that first of all, I study acting every week. I'm in class every week and I take it very seriously. I want to act every day. I would like to be in all of Anthony de Blasi's films.
Oh yeah.
Emphasis added. All right. He is very talented. There's no endless takes on his set.
Hmm.
He's very efficient. He has a clear vision for what he would like to see on screen.
Yeah, very carefully
He
planned. It
lets you try
sounds.
stuff out. Yeah,
Hmm.
he lets you try stuff out. I think any actor would be very fortunate to work with him. The question is, Anthony, would you like to continue working with me?
Here's
That's the question.
here's hoping.
And
Yeah.
hopefully the answer is, hope so. I hope so.
Yeah.
Um, I like that he likes to promote the movies with the actors. So I was invited by Anthony and one of our other wonderful actresses,
Hmm.
Morgan Lennon. Morgan is that stunningly beautiful she plays a wacky,
Yeah.
wibble wobble, swish swish.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
she's a complete stunning beauty. I mean, she's absolute 10 all the
Yeah.
way. Morgan, are you listening?
Yeah.
That's what I think of you. So Morgan is a very nice lady.
Yeah.
She's very, very nice. And Morgan, Anthony, and I went to Universal City Walk. Are you familiar with that place?
I'm not with this one, no.
Have you ever heard of Universal
Yeah,
Studios?
yeah. Hmm.
So at Universal Studios, there's this enormous, like, outdoor mall.
Uh-huh.
It's huge. And in there is the cinema. They have a cinema there.
Hmm.
And so Malum played at Universal City
Oh,
Walk.
how exciting, yeah.
At That was very exciting.
Yeah.
So we went in, and the general manager, or the on-duty manager, I guess, said we could, bring some posters. We brought posters for the fans. They were nice enough to hand out the posters right before the movie started. They rolled them up, and thanks a lot to all the Universal people. They
Yeah.
rolled them up and put them made them into tubes, and then handed the posters out to all the viewers. The the showing that we went to was 90% full,
Oh,
and at Universal.
that had to have been a
So
sight, for.
yeah, it's exciting. I
Oh,
mean, it's
yeah.
so exciting.
Oh, man.
And then there was we were all the way in the back, and then there were the audience members. They kept occasionally would go look at us like,
That's you.
oh.
Yeah.
So there were a couple of guys that wait. There were a couple of people that waited, outside, and we signed posters.
Oh, right on.
So we autographed the posters, and we
The
had a
fans
nice
appreciate
little.
that stuff. Absolutely.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
so important. We don't have a film without audience.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
No, there's no movie without the audience. I understand all you celebrities that are exhausted, that people are nonstop bothering you, but hey, you wanted it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You asked for it.
Exactly.
You pursued it. You made it happen. That's what you bought into. You knew it was going to
appreciate it.
happen.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, if you're not prepared to sign autographs all day, when they cross the line,
Yeah.
you saw what happened with Tom Hanks' wife. When people cross the
Right.
line, of course, that's horrible. But for the most part, I can never see myself getting short-tempered with a fan. I mean, anybody that pursues this career, if somebody asks you for your autograph, I'm like, whoa, are you sure? Who? Oh, me?
Did you
Sure, why not?
are
Get
you
my gold pen out. I actually had a silver pen for that show.
Oh, yeah,
I
you
brought a
gotta
silver
have the
pen.
nice
Yeah, just
bright white or gold. It's let the autographs stick out.
yes.
But
I brought a silver pen.
are
And
you opposed to doing more horror movies? I know some actors are like they don't want to get like stuck in that genre. I know Jamie Lee Curtis, she kind of wanted to distance herself after Halloween and a couple other John Carpenter movies. But are you opposed to doing more horror? Or?
Sure. So I don't prescribe
Mm-hmm.
to this thesis of getting pigeonholed into a genre.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in such a thing. I don't think that's even a real thing. Uh, I think that anybody that imagines themselves limited, they're just not trying hard enough.
Yeah.
There are lots of very visionary directors who have hired actors of all walks of life out of
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of stuff. I mean, I think I think it's called The Outfit. Have you ever seen The Outfit?
No, I
It's a
haven't seen
movie about, I'm trying to remember the exact, I think it was, I'm struggling with it because I don't remember what Savile Row, I think it's called Savile Row.
it. Mm-hmm.
It is a place in London where they make the finest suits in the world. And, they have this great film. I thought it was wonderful. And, Dylan O'Brien is known for, the Maze Runner series. Who I'm talking about.
Yeah, yeah.
he was in the Maze Runner. He played the lead in the Maze Runner.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy's well known as like the Teen Wolf series. He's done Maze Runner. He's done a bunch of stuff. He did 92 episodes of, I think, of Teen Wolf according to IMDb.
It's crazy how
And
long that's been going on for, Teen Wolf.
yeah, I
I
mean,
don't even
it's
think about it,
people
but
love it.
yeah,
It's like
absolutely.
it's like a soap opera, right?
At this point, yeah.
And yeah, he did this great movie called The Outfit. It was
Hmm.
totally outside of his type,
Yeah,
and it was against type. It was not his normal type of role, and he was wonderful in it. I mean, to me, it's like I don't have any preconceived notion about where the path leads me. If somebody has a good script, a quality project, I have no problem doing any genre of film. I don't ever feel like I'm getting, I mean, that's the wonderful thing about character actors anyway. I can
yeah,
be in any movie, I can be with any actor, I can star opposite, I can co-star or act opposite anybody, any
right,
type of job,
right. Very flexible.
because that's a character actor has that benefit.
Yeah,
I feel like we have the blessing of that. It's not, I say we, meaning character actors, we have those blessings of being able to move in and out of different types of films,
yeah,
because there's always going to be a call for, certain kind of father type, comic
yeah.
relief type,
Right, right.
donut loving cop. I played cop 4 times last year, so I mean, donut loving cop, that's sort of a stereotype, but it's a common type.
Yeah,
um, it's what people expect. But what's also nice about it is if the director is a giving person, you also have a chance, like I did with Anthony, of bringing in new lines and introducing nuances to the character that perhaps he didn't write into the script.
yeah, yeah. It. I mean, it's something that I appreciate when an actor is able to kind of spread thin and do a little bit of everything in terms of roles and characters. I love my typecasted character. I love Dwayne Johnson movie, or like Arnold movie every now and then. But I do appreciate when an actor is able to have that range and have that variety, and see them in different roles. It's I think one in particular that I've been noticing recently. I don't know, with the trend of wrestling turned actors, but Batista, I've just really loved his kind of range he's had with like Blade Runner, Knock at the Cabin very recently. I thought that was a pretty solid movie, and Guardians of the Galaxy. But it's something that I also find find interesting, is when an actor's able to do that, to just kind of spread thin and do a little bit of everything in terms of roles, and not just stick to one kind of set tone and sort of way they present themselves on the screen. It's it's something I appreciate for sure.
Okay, something just randomly popped into my head when you
Yeah.
said Batista. Did you know that I have a book on directing in my living room that
Hmm.
has storyboards from the original Blade Runner storyboards, and the scene with the protein farm, the little
Yeah.
protein
Yeah.
farm scene
Yeah. Yeah.
with Batista, was in the storyboards for the original Blade Runner, but it never made the film. It didn't get into the original
No,
movie.
I did not know that. That's
So yeah,
yeah.
I think it's Shot by Shot. That's the name of the film, book, excuse me.
Hmm.
I think the book is called Shot by Shot. I bought my copy on eBay. I think I paid $3 for it or something. It was marked. It's a 1991 book, but a wonderful book,
Yeah.
worth picking up. I mean, if you can look past the references to things in there that are obviously dated,
Sure.
just in terms of framing, working with actors, 180-degree plane, all these
Yeah.
different concepts,
The technical stuff.
using,
Yeah.
dollies, trucking shots, all these things. But in there, they have storyboards from all these iconic films, and one of the really wonderful references was the '82 movie Blade Runner. I remember when I saw Blade Runner announced in the book, in the magazines, and I saw the kind of the stuff. I couldn't wait to see the movie.
Right.
And you probably noticed in Blade Runner 2049, almost there's not hardly any smoking, right? But
Yeah.
in the original movie, everybody is
Oh, yeah.
smoking.
Everybody's got a cigarette in hand. Right.
Yeah. Did you notice that? That's an interesting change I saw between the two films
Yeah. I mean, it's
is the lack of cigarette smoking.
definitely just the cultural, influences are there for sure.
Right.
Yeah. Um, I wanted to. This might be a kind of a more silly question that you hear in all the smaller interviews, especially with horror channels and stuff. But do you have a favorite horror movie? What's your favorite scary movie?
So I don't believe in favorites. I think it's a real dangerous, slippery slope to have
Yeah,
favorites.
yeah,
You kind of put yourself, you commit yourself. It's kind of like marriage. I mean, I understand marriage is a commitment, that's important, but the minute you say that my favorite food is, my favorite place is, my favorite film is, it can immediately limit your ideas and your options and your
right,
willingness
right.
to, I believe that making movies is super hard. I've watched it done, I've seen it done. Anybody who could get a movie, you know, financed, financed, directed, edited, finalized, post-production, sound,
Yeah.
done, distributed, done. Just getting a movie in a theater is a Herculean task.
Oh yeah,
It is the
that's something I find fascinating too. Is just trying to get a wide release in theaters and the whole process with like the box office. I think it's fascinating to me, but it is from what I've read in articles and just on websites, it is just a pain for sure to get
well,
that.
it's hard, right?
Yeah.
So, for you to make a movie is a big deal, and I have to give credit to
Hmm.
anybody that can do it. So I try to find something good about every film
Hmm.
that I watch. I don't look at a movie and go, "Oh, it was a horrible movie," because there's something good in every film. You can look at a standout performance, you can look at wonderful cinematography. Maybe I don't particularly enjoy the writing, but the cinematography is beautiful. I've seen lots of beautiful movies where the cinematographer was just amazing. I
Going
would
to
look at
work,
their
right?
work and I go,
Yeah.
wow.
Hmm.
I didn't really like, necessarily go for the film, but I love the cinematography. And I recently saw Casualties of War, which is not a horror film. There's a little bit of horror in it, but it's not a horror film. But Casualties of War was beautifully shot, and I love the cinematography in it. And then I got on a roll, and I wanted to see more Brian De Palma movies.
Hmm.
And then I watched another, one of his films, and it wasn't the same excitement for me. So, I have to look out and say, look, it's hard to make a good movie. We don't know why they are successful. So the quick answer is Alien, Alien 1978. Is
70.
that the
I
year?
think it's
Uh,
78 or 79.
yeah,
It's yeah.
Alien is like the one of the greatest
I
horror
love it.
films ever
I
made.
love it. Yeah.
And Aliens by Aliens plural is one of the greatest action movies ever made. It's a terrific action film.
Great change of pace.
Um,
Yeah.
totally not really to me, not a scary movie, but a great action
Yeah,
movie.
and that's
Uh,
I totally am with you with trying to see the strengths in movies. It's especially when you're showing somebody like an indie or like a smaller B movie. It's people that aren't used to watching the smaller budget films. They could be super critical of it, and it's something like nobody goes out to make a bad movie. So I'm with you there 100% in the sense that when I'm watching a smaller budget film, I'm trying to see how they work with that smaller budget, and cause and how they make their movie, you know, the way they wanted it to. And it's something that doesn't. I know it turns a lot of people off, but it's something that it's. I try and get perspective on that. Like I try and
right,
understand that it's
right.
not everybody has that multi-million-dollar budget to work with, and I like to see how they kind of experiment and work with that um, disadvantage, if you will.
Well, absolutely. I
Yeah.
mean, now we're into films that have uh, billion-dollar budgets. I mean, how's that even happen? I think Avatar
Insane.
advertised that they're now in the billions. So I mean, it's hard to perceive those kind of levels of anything. I
Hmm.
mean, I'm so far removed from that. I mean, of course, I've been very financially successful, but I'm small potatoes,
Yeah.
compared to Jim Cameron. I mean, he's so far. I recently worked on a project where I got to go into homes valued at between 9 and $13 million.
Whew.
And I
Jesus.
I mean, that world of living. I mean, I have a beautiful home, I have a beautiful yard, I have a beautiful house,
Yeah.
but I don't have a home like that.
Right.
I walked into a $11 million home, and I'm like, it's
It's
not that I
yeah.
don't see myself. It's not that I don't see myself making that kind of money. I could always imagine making that kind of money. I don't know what I would do to make that kind of money. It probably wouldn't be acting,
Yeah.
because you'd have to be a producer or the owner of the studio or something to make those kind of big bucks. But when I look at those homes, and I look at what those very few of those homes are owned by actors, they were all owned by business people in some
Yeah.
business.
Yeah.
And, that's a whole nother world
Right.
level above
Yeah.
me.
Another hour right there.
Okay. Yeah. Way up there.
Yeah.
Um, just in my opinion. But so I would say Alien would be one of my all-time most delightful horror films that I love. If you throw me a list, and I'll tell you if I enjoyed it and watched it. What are
Okay.
your what are your what are your go-tos?
Oh man, it's such a cliche one, but it's what about the Halloween franchise? That's I love it. I watch all the
Oh, they're
movies
great.
every
They're
year, even the
terrific.
ones that I'm not particularly fond of. I watch every single one every year.
They're fun.
Yeah.
They're lots of fun.
Yeah.
They're not scary anymore, though, are they?
They're just entertaining for me at
They're
least. Yeah,
entertaining. Yeah,
they're
it's
just
fun.
yeah, very entertaining films.
Yeah, it doesn't keep you up at night.
Yeah. Let's what about hmm what about the Scream movies? We'll do something that has a recent entry. What do you think of like
I like the
Scream?
Scream movies. What about
Yeah.
what about something foreign? Have you ever seen I think it's called The Audition?
Oh my God, the Japanese film? Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, I mean it's the
Pretty
scene.
scary though.
Yeah, the scene near like the final act, if you know what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Oh God. Yeah, that one's
Yes, let's not spoil it for if you haven't
yeah.
seen that movie. If you've never seen that movie, it's a very obscure film because uh it's Takashi Miike.
Mike, yeah. Yeah.
Miike, yeah. It's a wonderful movie. I know that it really had me like it was a mind bender.
Yeah.
You really didn't know where it was going to go.
It's
I never expected what happened at the end.
and again,
Um,
I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't seen
yeah,
it,
don't
but
spoil it. That's a great film that most people have never seen.
yeah, I'm not even gonna say it because I don't want to teeter that edge. I mean, one of my favorite films is I did a video on it. It was Lucio Fulci's The Beyond. Like I could watch that nonstop. I don't know if you've seen any of the
I've
Italian
never seen
horror
it.
movies. I mean, it is such a trip. It's plot wise. I mean, it's very loose and just kind of. A lot of people describe it like David Lynch type of
Right,
movie, but it's for I always this is how I always explain it. It is the aesthetically most horror kind of horror movie to me. Like I mean, you have just decrepit, nasty old homes. I mean, you have the sickly looking ghouls. It's very kind of dreadful, but I mean, if you're into that stuff, I mean, I could watch. That's one of those films where when I first saw it, like I knew I was gonna probably be rewatching this for like the rest of my life, and that's my favorite feeling
right,
when you find that movie that you're like, yeah, I'm gonna be throwing this on for decades. It.
right.
I think the most recent film for me that and it's not a horror movie was The Batman. I loved that movie so much. Oh,
Oh
so
yeah, I love the Batman.
it was so good.
Yeah, it
It's
can be sort of. There's a little
yeah.
horrific elements to
Yeah,
the Batman.
that's what I loved about it is it's some of those shots. It's like, oh man, you could see some serious influences from like the horror genre here, and it's I mean it works with the character so well. It's a fantastic movie.
Absolutely. Well, there was the Dark Knight film with Cillian Murphy in it.
Hmm.
Do Do you remember the horror scenes that he brought to
Oh yeah,
the Dark Knight?
yeah.
Was it the Dark Knight Returns? I don't remember which of them he came
I
out
think
in.
I think it was
I think it was
Returns.
just
Yeah,
Dark Knight.
yeah,
I think he was just in the Dark Knight, right?
yeah.
So he came in and he did that kind of horror scene. There was a
Hmm.
little bit of a horror. They used some jump scares in that film,
Yeah, yeah.
in that movie. Well, before we close, I was hoping to
Sure,
give your viewers, um, some like fast tips, suggestions,
sure.
whatever. Maybe there's some things that we could talk about that would help in a powerful way to
It's
helping
I
people who
wanna
are interested in.
start. Sorry for, but I wanted to
Oh,
start with.
please.
Did you? What are your upcoming plans with acting? Like, what do you have next on the table?
Well, that's the most depressing part of being a professional actor is being unemployed.
Yeah.
So I'm always looking for another job, of
Hmm.
course. I'm on avail for some projects. I am in some final rounds for some national commercials. Just did a beautiful callback for a commercial for an upcoming project that films in Mexico. Um, Nothing closed yet, no deals closed, but there's always some irons in the fire that are, for projects that I'm working on.
Hmm.
But it's like feast and famine, something pops up. You just never know when it's going to happen. And the good news is, I'm patient
Yeah.
to wait for the right projects to come along. And if you're a director out there in the world and you're interested in character actor and you've got a project, please feel free to reach out to me. By the way, for those of you who would like to connect on social media, it's at Born to Deal, BORNTODEAL on all of the social media sites, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn. Feel free to, connect with me there. I do lean more towards public side comments than I do private messaging,
Hmm.
just because I don't want to become a full-time coach, but I'm happy to share my love
Yeah.
and give my advice to many people. So if you post something and you tag me, I'll do my best to respond. But I lean towards public responses than doing private counseling because that's a whole another career, and I'm not in that career. That's not
Hmm.
my career. But I always like to help lots of people. So if I can help, I will. Uh, but I think that in closing, before I know that we're in our hour and a half now, and I don't want to forget to mention a few things.
Sure. Floor's
Um,
yours.
yeah, I mean, it's, do something you love. I mean, of course, don't starve yourself. But one thing, and this is not offense, no offense to parents, because parents, if you've got minor children and the house, that's your responsibility. They need to comply with your wishes. You're the parent, you're raising your kids, your children, and they need to follow your lead. Of course, that's a complicated soup because you've got to also throw in some things that your child is going to appreciate and like, and as long as you're parenting well. But don't force your opinion on them about careers, because if your child has no interest in being a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever, a dentist, uh, I've seen it go very badly. Now that I've gotten older, I see children that have been forced to go to dental school or medical school
Right.
or become an attorney, and the parents pushed it and they weren't interested at all, and it really caused problems in their family. But if you've got a child that's interested in the performing arts, it's important to, once they are 18 and on their own, and that's their choice, if that's what they want to do, and they're no longer in your, no longer young enough that you tell them what to do, and now they're old enough to make decisions and write contracts. It's important that you support their choices, whether you agree with them or not. You should be supportive, because acting is not, nobody goes into acting, no one should go into acting imagining you're going to become a star. That's silly.
Baby steps.
Nobody knows why Justin Bieber became a star. Justin Bieber's very talented, but there's a lot of talented singers.
Yeah.
Nobody knows, nobody has any idea why Tom Cruise became a star. But Tom Cruise works very hard. And he has a lot in common with Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber works very hard. So I'm going to quote Tom Cruise because um, I Tom Cruise has been a very great role model for me as a
Yeah.
businessman. As a businessman,
Hmm.
he says, "Your luck gets a lot better the harder you work." So, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't have to be lucky. You got to work hard. And folks, if you're interested in pursuing an acting career, you can't walk into that thinking you're not going to become rich overnight. You're not going to become famous overnight. It's a business like any other business. You need to learn the ropes. You need to learn how to act.
Hmm.
You need to pick up scripts, do cold reading, learn lines, be professional, show up on time, show up early. There's a lot to it.
Yeah.
So as you take your career seriously, it's more likely to be successful. There's acting work everywhere. I mean, everywhere you go, there's acting work. It's true. There's more acting work probably in LA, in New York, now in Atlanta, now in Louisiana, now in other places. There's a lot of work in these major hubs, and at the same time, you don't need to move to Los Angeles to work as an actor. But with Zoom, I got my job on Malum. I worked in Kentucky. I don't live in Kentucky.
Yeah. Seems like a game
I never
changer.
met the director before day one. My first day of meeting the director was on the set after I already had my Officer Hudson uniform on.
Yeah.
So, it's possible to get an acting job and go travel and go get that, job and travel somewhere. So, if it's something you love to do, do it, but have realistic expectations. It's a lot of hard work. That's all.
Yeah, I mean, just put in the grind and baby steps, and one thing I learned from this interview is like, with technology and Zoom, I mean, it's a game changer. It seems like it's going to open the
Totally.
doors up for sure.
Absolutely.
It's well, all right. I mean, it's been an absolute pleasure, man. I'd love to have you on again for any future projects or just to talk more about movies and just the process. I love learning about this kind of stuff.
Well, that's very good. Thank you.
Yeah, real quick, just because I'm a
We
sucker
don't have to be
for
real quick. I'm not rushing off.
for I love to just when people recommend movies, like I like to put it down in a list so I can look into it and see if it's what was it? It was the outfit, right?
Oh, the outfit's great.
Was that
That's last year.
was that the one that you
That's a
recommended
great
to
film.
me?
I would. It's Graham Moore's film. It stars Mark Rylance, who's a wonderful actor, Dylan O'Brien, and a cast of some very competent actors.
Yeah.
Wonderful film. Now it's a very small, petite, production. I mean, the whole thing essentially takes place in a couple of sets.
Hmm.
It's one of those films where they did a wonderful job, but it's not a mega budget film.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderfully acted film with some actors who were working against type. And I strongly encourage all horror fans to watch Audition.
Yo,
It's just Audition is the name of the
I
film.
second that one. Yeah, it's a good one.
I mean, that was just great. That film did not make a lot of money,
Yeah.
but it's a really well done movie.
Yeah.
Real, if you can handle subtitles. I'm not a huge fan of
Hmm.
subtitles. I'm not a real big fan. As bad as dubbing is, I often sometimes prefer dubbed movies.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
don't want to
it's
have
a
to keep
hurdle.
reading.
Yeah, it's a hurdle for
It's a hurdle for me.
yeah. But I mean, I think
So my thoughts go to,
it's a great entry to Takeshi Miike's movies too. I think Audition because he
have you
does.
seen other films by
Yeah,
Takeshi
yeah.
Miike?
Here, let me. I'm gonna pull up a list real quick. Stay on this.
Ichi the Killer, Gozu, One Missed Call, Dead or Alive, Trilogy,
One
Graveyard of Honor,
one missed call, and
13 Assassins.
I saw that one when I was 20, 21, and I was like hiding behind my blanket watching that movie. It is terrifying. Um, yeah, no, he has some great films. Ichi the Killer is just brutal. Oh, nasty movie, but still a very good one. Uh,
Well, I'll check out those other movies. I mean, I certainly haven't seen them, and I'll definitely look into them
yeah, yeah,
because
for sure.
I like his directing a lot. I'm not, like I said, I'm not a genre specific kind of an audience member. Some people they only watch horror movies,
Yeah.
and I learned that along the way. And I want to watch movies that are entertaining to me. So if it happens to be a horror film, I'll be excited to watch it. I never imagined myself getting excited about Alien, but for some reason I've gotten latched onto it.
Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
watched it many, many times,
And it's, I
and
mean,
I really love that film.
there's a lot to appreciate there, a lot to unpack with that movie.
Yeah, a lot of firsts as well. I mean, the movie had lots of firsts, and
Oh, absolutely.
Ridley Scott's work on that movie was outstanding. I mean, he's done a lot of outstanding films, but that particular one was very, very outstanding. But Prometheus doesn't cross my mind as a horror film. It doesn't come across as a horror film to me. I mean,
Yeah.
I like it as a science
It's
fiction
a
movie.
it's a very interesting like sci-fi kind of adventure movie to me, and not in a Star Wars sort of sense, but it's interesting to see what unfolds with Prometheus. It's
Right.
I
It's an
remember
interesting film.
watching it, I was disappointed, but giving it on rewatches, I was like, you know what, I do like this. This is nice.
It's a well done movie.
Yeah. Oh
It
yeah.
was really well done, and I enjoyed it a lot. I mean, there's a lot of movies that I watch them repeatedly, and I go, "Wow, this is really well made."
Yeah. Yeah.
And initially it didn't do well. Another movie, and this is not a horror film. Sorry to digress, but this is not a horror film, but Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets.
Yeah.
I mean, I watched that movie several times now, and every time I watch it, I have a better appreciation. I don't have anything against the casting. The casting was fine. Ethan Hawke always does a great job. He's always the tops for me. I mean, he
Yeah.
he really did a great job in the film. He was very interesting and had a minor part, but he was very interesting. But Valerian really reminded me that I really love Besson's films. Many of his films I'm really fond of. Fifth
Hmm.
Element, of course, and uh, I really enjoyed. I met Tiny Lister when he had just finished wrapping that movie. I met him that year. He was president of the universe,
Yeah.
and I got a chance to chat with him. But I like Mr. Basson's movies, and I really enjoyed Valerian. I initially was like, yeah, it's Valerian, and I watched it again, then I watched it again, and it just got better each time.
Yeah.
Um, but it was a top-heavy film. It has so much budget. It just had so much to overcome financially.
It's so much ground. Yeah.
You have to double. You probably know this, but the exhibitor gets half the money.
Hmm.
So
It's
if a movie is $100 million, then the movie has to gross $200 million
yeah, it's
to
something
break to break even.
people don't realize is that yeah they have to people where they're showing the movies like they have to make money too. So it's when people read the numbers, especially with what was it, Black Adam. It's like no, that movie. I mean it didn't really make the mark with, especially with all that advertising it got. So
Well, yeah, you got to double your money to
yeah.
make the film
Yeah.
be financially successful. It has to double up.
Hmm.
Is there anything that you would like to share with your audience that are pearls of wisdom I might be able to bring to the table? I'm happy to share any closing thoughts that you think might be interesting to people. What's
Uh,
burning in your mind? Or maybe it's a sequel and we'll have to bring it back.
uh, go check out Malum. It's a great movie. I have a review on it if you guys want to, learn more about my thoughts on it. Um, but Anthony DeBlasi and Last Shift and Malum, I think it's a fascinating because again with that short time frame between remaking this movies, it might turn people off initially, but look into it and understand like the reasonings behind that, and I mean, I think it's a really good display of a director's kind of really sticking to his vision for an idea, that being The Last Shift, and wanting to expand on it and broaden it and kind of, do something more and different with that. And so I think that's why this movie in particular really fascinated me, and it was something that I really appreciated um, for the 2023 horror movies that came out so far. Um, it was great having you on my stream again. It's my first interview ever. I'm still very nervous.
Yay! I'm the first.
Yes, yeah, but I
Well, let me give you some advice that you didn't ask for.
yeah,
I worked for several very high profile celebrities. There's some really nice people out there. If you just ask, they'll do an interview.
that's. I mean, it's something I would love to keep doing. I love talking to. I mean, I've gone to conventions and asked questions. I don't when I go up to the booths. I don't like to just get my autograph. I like to talk to them about the movies. So it's something I would love to do in the future with just anybody that I could get a hold of. It would be awesome for sure.
Well, you're a very thoughtful and intelligent interviewer, and I would suggest that you reach out to people. It's like acting. You got to
Shoot.
present hundreds of auditions to get a job.
Yeah.
You probably have to contact dozens of celebrity managers or publicists. You start with the publicist. You just contact them, and then the nice people will give interviews. Of course, you know, you'll get a lot of no's, but you might get a yes. You never
Everyone.
know. I
Yeah.
mean, I
That's
I
how.
I know people like, why don't you reach out to Anthony? Maybe he would agree to do an interview. You never know.
Oh man. Yeah, that would be interesting. But
Right.
and
Why don't you
yeah,
ask him? He's on Instagram.
yeah. I mean, that's the beauty of social media. But thanks so much for sticking around and talking movies with us. Really
Well, let me
appreciate
blow
it.
it up before we leave.
Yeah.
Everybody watching, be sure you tell all your friends to follow Ethan, the Smelly Jelly platform. Make sure that everybody gets a link, follows, interacts with Ethan. He's going to be big time in no time. And you want to know this guy. He does a great job. And really appreciate the opportunity to
And
talk about Malum and Officer Hudson on your platform, Ethan.
yeah,
Thank you
and
very
let
much for
me let
having me
me
on
real
your.
quick return the favor. Christopher Matthew Spencer, CMS. You could reach him at Born to Deal on Instagram. Go check him out. Check out Malum. Thanks for sticking around, Chris. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Yeah, take care.
All right. Take care. Bye, Ethan.